welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle. Erin and I are celebrating our 25th anniversary coming up in May, and so we decided to spend a week in Edinburgh. We have been having so much fun planning for this trip. One of the things we discovered is that Edinburgh is UNESCO's very first designated city of literature. Well, that got us thinking, how could we make this trip about books? Maybe that's a surprise to you, maybe it's not. Anyway, so one of the fun things that I did was I looked for some mysteries that I might like to read in preparation for this trip that are set in Edinburgh. So I have 5 books that I found at the library that are all set in Edinburgh. Now, some of you might be wondering, why aren't there any Rebus books in here? Aren't those the obvious go-to Edinburgh mystery books? Yes, they are. But I've been collecting the Rebus books, and so I actually have quite a lot of them. And I have a plan for specifically Ian Rankin's Flesh Market Close, because that is a place. That is a place in Edinburgh, so when we are there, we are going to find it, and I'm going to film a little video for you guys specifically related to that book in the location where it's set, which I think is really cool. So anyway, these are 5 books that I found set in Edinburgh from the library that I want to read before we go on our trip. So let's just dive right in. First up, I found Blood in the Water by Gillian Galbraith. I don't know anything about this book or this author, but from the research that we've been doing, these cobblestones right here, that's Edinburgh. When one Edinburgh citizen after another is murdered in the same bloody manner, the newspapers buzz with talk of a serial killer. Smart and capable, but battling disillusionment and loneliness, D.S. Alice Rice races against time and an implacable killer to solve this series of grisly murders among the professional elite in the city's well-to-do new town. One thing we discovered is that Edinburgh's new town was actually kind of the Georgian era. So still quite old and awesome, and we are definitely going to visit the new town. So this is the first one. This might be a bit much for me. We'll see how grisly it is. When they say grisly, we'll see. But this is the first one that I found that I wanted to try. Next up, we have The Wages of Sin by Kaite Welsh. This one interested me because it is a historical mystery. Victorian Edinburgh. A female medical student is drawn into a tale of murder and subversion and vice when she recognizes one of the corpses in her anatomy lecture. That sounds great. So Sarah Gilchrist has been accepted into the University of Edinburgh's medical school in 1892, the first year that it admitted women. So there's going to be some issues related to that, never mind the fact that she recognizes one of the corpses on her anatomy table. That sounds really good too. Okay, then I found The Golden Acre by Philip Miller. These all have great covers, by the way. Thomas Tallis, Inspector of Provenance, has just arrived in Edinburgh, Scotland to authenticate the Golden Acre, a masterpiece by iconic Scottish architect and painter Charles Rennie Mackintosh. Still dealing with a miserable divorce and the fallout from a disastrous job in London, Tallis is eager to sign off on the painting and leave. It should be simple, as the painting has been owned by one noble family since the 20s. But then a horrifying parcel arrives on Tallis's desk, and the threatening message is clear. Someone doesn't want him inspecting the painting. Now that Tallis sees lives are in danger, he has no choice but to stay until the investigation is complete. Meanwhile, gruesome murders are plaguing Edinburgh. First, a Scottish painter of great renown. Next, an Edinburgh city councillor. Battle-hardened newspaper reporter Shauna Sanderson is on the case, even as her beloved industry shrinks around her. Shona doesn't care who she steps on to get the best story, and she soon uncovers a link between the Golden Acre and the murders. As Talus's personal crisis reach a fever pitch, Shona struggles to enlist his help in understanding how the painting is mixed up in all this violence before either one of them becomes the next victim. Now, this next paragraph was intriguing to me. Pensive, lush, and tragic, the Golden Acre is a heartbroken love letter to Edinburgh and an unpredictable, gorgeously plotted mystery to savor. So that sounds really good. We've got some art crime as well, which I love. Okay, next up. This is a series that I've been reading, but I have not been paying attention to where specifically it's set. And so this is the next one in the series for me. This is Deadly Additions by Paige Shelton. Now, this is about a bookstore set in Edinburgh, so now I will be reading it very curious to see if I can discover where in Edinburgh it is. It's a quiet, snowy morning at the Cracked Spine bookshop when bookseller Delaney Nichols receives a mysterious visitor, a messenger. He presents her with a perplexing note, an invitation to a meeting with eccentric socialite Sheila O'Connor, who requests Delaney's participation in an exclusive treasure hunt. Delaney is intrigued, but also cautious. Sheila, while charming in person, has a reputation for her hijinks as a wealthy young woman in the 70s. She was even once suspected for the murder of a former boyfriend, though ultimately cleared of all charges. But Delaney is enticed by the grand prize at the end of the treasure hunt, a highly valuable first edition copy of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. The winner is also to receive the contents of Sheila's vast library, and all participants will earn a large sum of cash. Wow! The night after the first meeting of the treasure hunters, however, several homes in Edinburgh are robbed in a manner reminiscent of Sheila's old tricks. And when a man connected to Sheila is killed, suspicion builds. Except Sheila herself has disappeared from her home and seemingly kidnapped by the villain. That sounds really good. All right, and then last but not least, this is a standalone by an author I've read before, so I'm very excited about that. It is In Place of Fear by Catriona McPherson. I've been reading her Dandy Gilver series, which is set in the 20s in Scotland. As the NHS is born, a killer stalks the streets of Edinburgh. This sounds really good. Edinburgh 1948. Helen Crowther leaves a crowded tenement home for her very own office in a doctor's surgery. Upstart, ungrateful, out of your depth. The words of disapproval come at her from everywhere, but she's determined to take her chance and play her part. She's barely begun when she stumbles over a murder and learns that in this most respectable of cities, no one will fight for justice at the risk of scandal. As Helen resolves to find a killer, she's propelled into a darker world than she knew existed. Hardscrabble as her own can be. Disapproval is the least of her worries now. This sounds really great. So there you have it. These are the 5 books I found at the library set in Edinburgh that I want to read before my trip. Have you read any of these books? I would love to hear what you thought about them in the comment section down below. Also, do you have a favorite book set in Edinburgh? I would love to hear about that as well. And I will see you for another video soon. Bye.